Hello, my name's Trey Brimmer. I'm with Mitel, and today I'm going to go over the functionality of the 5330 phone. This is a phone that's going to be distributed out to IPFS. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the phone itself, make sure you know what all the buttons do. Then we're going to briefly go over the voicemail. So let's go ahead and get started. Some things to remember once the phone system is operational. You do not need a 1 for a long distance call anymore. But you do need the area code for all outside calls, meaning even local. You'll have to dial the area code first. The mailbox password is 1111, and then it'll have you reset up your password to be unique to you. It will be also on a handout. If you dial 911, don't hang up. Stay on the line and tell the 911 operator that you made a mistake, or they will dispatch. So even when you make 911, you hang up really quick, you think you beat it, you probably haven't, and they will dispatch a lot of times out to see what's going on. To make an outgoing call, you can either press 8 or 9. I know with the old system, a lot of you had used 8s or an outgoing button, but you can either use 8 or 9 and then dial the number normally. Before dialing the area code or phone number, make sure that you dial 8 first, or 9. Let's take a look at the phone. Here's the basic layout. What we're going to do is we're going to work our way from the top down. You see over there where you see the message waiting lamp. We'll start there, and we'll work our way down the, if you're facing it, the right-hand side, and then we'll go down the center, some buttons that we designed for you. So starting at the top, you do have your message indication light. That will blink when you have new voicemail messages. You have your volume up and down, and sometimes those arrow keys are also used for scrolling in some cases, and I'll show you when that comes into play. The next button is your speaker, but much like your phones do now, you don't have to press the speaker key to be on speakerphone. You can just start dialing the keypad with the handset in the cradle, and it'll be on speaker automatically. The only time you really need to press the speaker key would be if you are on the handset and you want to go back to speaker. You'll press the speaker key once and then hang up the handset and you'll be on speakerphone. The mute key, you can notice it's a little different color. It's clear, so it will be lit when you're muted. A mute is you can hear them, they can't hear you. So when you press it and it's lit, it's on. Pretty much everything on the phone is a toggle. If it's lit, it means it's on. If you hit it again, it turns it off. The next series of buttons are fixed function keys, starting with what's called the applications key. We'll come back to that in a little bit. That's where all the settings are of the phone. That's where you can change the contrast, the language. You can make the fonts smaller. You can also set up things like forwarding and look at some speed dial keys. There's empty keys on your phone that you can go ahead and set up for an outside or an internal number. So we'll take a little closer look at what's behind that key in a bit. The next key with the circle with the X on it is a cancel key. What a cancel key does for you is it allows you to back up from a transfer or a conference. The scenario being that, say, you're trying to transfer a call to somebody and you realize you dialed the wrong extension. You could hit cancel. It'll return you back to the caller that you were trying to transfer, and you can start over. It also works very well with setting up conferencing. On these phones, you can conference up to 8 people on a conference call. So you could see that you might have 3 or 4 people on a call. You go to add another person, maybe you go to their voicemail. Well, you don't want to include the voicemail in, so you can hit cancel. It'll take you back to the conference, and you can start over. The next key over is your redial key. It'll redial the last number that you dialed. On the larger part of the display that I'll show you in a little bit, you'll see where that number is stored while the phone is idle, so you'll know what you're redialing. Starting on the next row, the red key is your hold key. It works just like your hold works now. If you're on a call and you want to place it on hold, you'll press the red hold key. The line key that the call was on will start flickering, and to retrieve it, you'll hit the flickering line key. So there's your hold, and then you'll retrieve it on the line keys, which I'll show you in a bit. The next key over is your transfer and conference. So this is a dual function key. Kind of remember, it looks like a little girl with pigtails, but it's supposed to be 3 people. That'll help you remember it. But what the transfer conference does, it almost works exactly like your transfer does on if you're using the Mitel or Intertel phone system currently. The way a transfer works is I have a call, I want to transfer it. I'll go ahead and press the transfer key, and then I dial the extension number, I hang up the phone, and it sends the call. If I wanted to announce it, first, I'll press the transfer key, I'll dial the extension, I'll stay on the line, I'll hear your phone ring, you'll pick up, we can have a private conversation without the person I'm transferring to you hearing, and then when I hang up, it completes it and sends it to you. Anytime you transfer a call to somebody, if they don't pick up, it goes to their voicemail box, unless you're transferring it to a group or a department. So that's how the transferring works. The conference works similar. The way that works is much like a transfer. You'll have a call. Either you've dialed it or they've dialed in. I'll press the transfer conference key. I'll dial an extension or an outside number. Once I get that person on the line, again, I can have a private conversation. Hey, can you join the conference? If they say yes, I'll just press the key one more time, the transfer conference key one more time, and we'll all be connected together. To add people, I'll just press the key again. It'll give me dial tone. I can dial an outside number or an extension number. When I get that person on the line, I can hit the conference transfer key again, and that adds 4 people into the conference. You can see positioned right above it is our cancel key, so that way if I went ahead and pressed the key, dialed your extension, but you weren't there and it goes to your voicemail box, I can then just go right up above to the cancel key, hit cancel, and then I'm back to the original conference. I do recommend if you're going to use the conference feature that you go ahead and practice with people within the office. If you have a friend in the office, go ahead and call them and conference in a couple people. Just make sure you're comfortable with it. It's very easy, but confidence is everything, obviously. The next key over is your messages key. This is how you will access your voicemail. It'll also blink with that message key up above when you have new messages. To retrieve a message, all you'll do is pick up the handset or hit speaker, press the message key, and then it'll ask for your passcode and you're in. If you want to go ahead and check your messages when it's not lit, it's the same process. You don't have to have it blinking like you do with the older Mitel Intertel system. So that's your access into voicemail. If you wanted to leave someone a message without ringing their phone, you'll press the message key. It'll prompt you for your passcode, but all you have to do is press star, and then it'll ask for a mailbox number. And then you dial in the person's extension, it goes to their voicemail, and you can leave them a message. So that's how those keys work. Obviously below that are your number keys, your dial pad. Now looking back at the phone, let's start at the top of the center where you see kind of where it says soft keys, but let's even start higher than that. What I've done is taken a picture of a phone that you'll actually have. Here's what that looks like. And we can kind of describe what's going on starting at the very top. You can see that it will display the time and the date. Also in that same little area, probably a little farther over to the left, there will be indications if you're in like do not disturb. It puts a little circle with a line through it. So it does give you a couple of visual clues about what's going on, but also the do not disturb or D&D button would be lit up so you'll know that something's on. Then you see a hard line and then a dotted line, and in between that line, there's no actual buttons associated to it. That's information. While the phone is idle, it's providing you the redial location we talked about. So that little arrow with the 1, 2, 3, when I press that, it's going to dial whatever is showing in that display, which should be the last thing I dialed. It'll also tell you inbound caller ID. So when a phone call comes in, much like your phone does now, it's going to display the caller identification at the top. Or if someone internally is calling you, it's going to show you their name and their extension number of who's calling you. So there is a lot of information that will be given to you in that display. It also does give you information when you're on your conference that we talked about. It'll say how many people are conferenced together, 3-person conference, 4-person conference, that sort of thing. So informational. Below the dotted line, you can see that there's a phone book, and you can see that there's buttons associated to that, 3 buttons. This is a dynamic area. While the phone is idle like it is now, it's offering you a phone book. It's by last name, so when you press the phone book button, it'll prompt you to start spelling in the last name of the person. When you, feel like you got enough letters in there to get close, you go ahead and we'll hit a button that says look up, and then it'll start showing you matches, and it'll allow you to scroll through all the matches until you find the right person. You'll have a button to call them. So that soft area becomes a little search for the phone book. That area will also be used, you'll notice that when you're doing a conference call, like we were doing, it'll offer you a ability to split. So you'll see split call displayed up where it says phone book now. That'll allow you, if you have a three-person conference going on, to split that conference up back into two, gives you to the first caller, puts the second caller on hold. And that way you can, and once you press that, it'll offer you a swap, so you can swap between the two people if you need to separate them for some reason. Or if you're on a conference and someone says, I'll stay on after the conference, and you just want to make sure everyone's off the conference, that's a good tool to use. Below the hard line, those are all keys that we designed for you to use. You may notice as you scroll down to the very bottom, you see the little stars and a 1, and if you look over to the right-hand side, you'll see 3 little pages, and below that, there's 2 big silver arrows. That'll allow you to scroll to 2 more pages of keys. These keys are going to be basically blank on the other 2 pages, and they're available for you to set up for like an outside number, an internal extension, or a feature possibly that you like. So I'll show you that in a little bit, but this is what the first page will always look like. First of all, it starts off with handoff, and the handoff works hand in hand with the cell on-off. So the way this works is that if it's lit, like you can see it's lit in green right now, the cell on and off, when a call rings in, it'll ring both your desk phone and your cell phone. So that way, if you're walking around or you're, grabbing a glass of water in the office, you can have your cell phone with you and still get all your calls. The handoff has to do with if you get a desk call or if you get a call to your desk that goes to your cell phone and you pick it up, then you'll have the ability to hand it off between your cell phone and your desk phone. So that way, if it's the end of the day and I'm on a call and I'm ready to walk out the door, I can then hand it off to my cell phone and walk out of the door. Or if I'm coming in the morning, I'd answered a call for the company and I sit down at my desk and I want to switch it off to my desk phone, I can hit handoff and it will send it to my desk phone. Now this only works with calls that originate to the phone. So it has to be a phone either has rang your phone and your desk, or a phone that goes right to your desk, and then you can use the handoff feature on that. It won't work if someone just calls your cell phone directly. It has to be managed through the phone system. So that's how those 2 buttons work together. When it's lit, it's ringing both phones. Again, anything lit is pretty much on. Now the next key down is a history button. It's right now saying missed calls because that's why it's lit. So anytime you leave the office and you come back and the history button is lit, it just means that someone had called your desk and you weren't there to get it. Now if they didn't leave you a message, that's a good way to check to see who was calling you. If they did, obviously your message light will be blinking and you'll know it. If you press the history key, it'll separate things out from missed calls, received calls, and dialed calls. So you'll be able to search those calls. It's the last 20. So you have a 20 call history going on there. Okay. The next key over is a call forward, C forward key. It's a little, I'll show you a little bit about this when we look at the applications key, that blue key we were talking about earlier. But the way this is it's a toggle to turn forwarding on and off. You'll set it up within the settings or the applications key, and this is a button that will allow you to turn that on and off. But we'll get a little deeper into that as we go along. If you're wearing a headset, wired headset, you'll need the headset key to be lit to use it, and that's where that key is right there. So next key down is your Do Not Disturb. Much like your Do Not Disturb works now, it turns your phone off for inbound call traffic. You can still make outside calls, but all calls will go straight to voicemail when you're in Do Not Disturb. Then the 2 keys below that, you can see that you have a line key. It says line 2, and then you have an extension. The extension is actually your line 1. It's going to show your actual extension number right there until a call comes in, and then it's going to light up that key and show caller ID where that extension number is now. And then when you're on a call and another call comes in, it'll light your line 2 call, give you a little ring indicator, much like it does now, and then you'll be able to answer that call. Place one on hold and answer it. The nice thing about holding between those two things, if you are on a call and another call comes in, instead of going up and pressing the hold key and then going back and hitting line 2, you can just go ahead and hit line 2. It'll automatically place line 1 on hold. So the only time you really need the hold key is if you're placing someone on hold to go grab a file or something like that. You don't really need to go all the way up. It saves you a step. Okay, so that's kind of the buttons that were designed for you. Let's take a look at the applications key. I talked about that several times, how that's where all the settings are. Let's take a look when you press the key initially, and what I want to do is kind of show you how to set up a speed call key for either an outside number or an extension. So let's take a look at that. Here's what it looks like when you press the key. So a couple of the things that are in here you're never going to need to worry about. One of those is voicemail logout. It's a visual voicemail application that you guys aren't using. Call history, you can see that one's lit too, just like your one on the page. It's just a call history, the same exact thing as you had on the front page. Just nicer to have on the front page. So rather than mess a key, you had a little key there. So rather than make you have to hit the blue key every time you want to check your call history, we just put it on the front page. So it's just a duplication there for you. Here's the call forwarding. You can see it says off. The way you set up call forwarding is very easy. You'll press the call forwarding button here, and up top it'll just ask you for the phone number. Remember to use 8 or 9, and then dial the area code and phone number, and then you'll hit activate. It'll then light up the key that was on the front page, and you just press that now to turn it on and off. So the nice thing about that, unlike your phone now, you'll be able to basically put a number in for your cell phone or whatever it is, and turn that on and off at will. Now this isn't like, I know you're probably saying, hey, I already have the cell phone on and off, why do I need to forward it? Well, this is unlike the cell phone on and off, where when you forward it to your cell phone, it will not ring your desk phone, and then it'll also go to your cell phone's voicemail, where if you have your cell phone activated and you don't answer your cell phone, it'll go to your desk phone voicemail. So there's a little difference between them, but that forwarding is there. It's used a lot for if someone leaves an organization to forward their phone up to the receptionist or something so calls don't get missed. But if you see a use for it, it's there for you. The conference unit is not a function you guys have. Settings, we're going to look at that in a second. That's where we're going to set up those keys that are blank on the phone. And super key, the only reason why that's there is it'll allow you to go through and look for a thing called ringtone, and you can change your ringer. Maybe a few of you are sitting close together, so if you're at the copier, you'll get used to what your ring sounds like, so you can vary your ring. It's 10 not exciting, but similar rings that are a little off pitch from each other, so you can pick a ring that makes sense to you that maybe someone who sits nearby doesn't have, and then you'll be able to tell when your phone's ringing if you've stood up and left your desk. Call information just gives you the information, time and date from the last call you received, and cordless device has the you don't have to worry about that key. So let's look at the settings key, because that's going to be your biggie. So the first thing you have done to get here, remember, is you've hit the blue key on the phone. Now we're going to hit settings, and this is what settings looks like when you go in. The one we're going to concentrate on is programmable keys. Those are going to be any blank keys on those other 2 pages that you want to set up. You might want to set up an outside number or an extension number. So that's how you're going to be able to do that, or a feature that's available on the phone. Just a quick look at the other things there. It's just the basic settings. You can change the language, you can change the text size. What we're looking at here is large. You can change it to small. The reason to do that is because if caller ID comes in, you'll be able to see name and number on your line rather than just name. So if you go smaller, it's harder to see, obviously, but you get more information. Call notification, you're not going to deal with any of that. Brightness and contrast, it's just how bright the display is and how deep and dark the lines are. It's set by default pretty well. Screensavers, stay away from that because it looks like your phone's dead. It basically is like a hotel application, so they can bounce a logo across it, but it's horrible, actually. It just basically makes your phone look like it has a problem, so stay away from that. And audio feedback and those keys, message key configuration, you're not going to mess with those. The audio feedback has to do with if this was at home, you were using it at home, so you can adjust if you're having echo problems or something. So most of these keys you're not going to use. The one you are going to use is programmable keys, so you'll press that programmable key button. Then it'll ask you, what do you want to make this programmable key? The first thing you'll do is once you press the programmable key button, you'll look for a blank key and you'll press that blank key. Once you press that blank key, it'll then ask you, what do you want to make the key? Assign a feature to the key that you've pressed. So your choices are speed call, private speed call, and then it goes down a host of features. And some are available to you and some aren't. Most of them are already represented by buttons on the phone. So what you want to do is, for our sake, we're going to go ahead and hit speed call or private speed call. The only difference between the two is a private speed call will not display the number on the phone. So if you want to put your home number on there, but you don't want people looking at your phone and seeing your home number, you'd make it a private speed call. Once you press one of those two, they set up exactly the same. It's going to give you this option to label it and number it. The label is going to be whatever you want it to be, a nickname, the first name, last name, whatever you want on there. So the first thing you're going to do on this, you can see it says save, which there's nothing to save yet. Edit information, that's the one we are going to use, but you can see this is also says clear key. So if this is an existing key and you want to clear it off and put something new there, that's how you would do that. Or cancel will take you back to the next screen. So we want to go edit information. The first thing it's going to do is ask us to label it. And what it'll do is it gives us this little keypad or this little letter pad below. That way you don't have to use the number pad on the phone, try to get to the right letter. The way this works is you'll press the button next to the adjoining line. Like for an example, you see where the A, B, C, D is. You'll press the key next to that. Just press it continuously. You can do it very slowly until you get to the letter and pause. Once you pause, it'll add the letter up top. Then you go to the next line and press the key and pause. It'll add that letter up. You'll notice that there's a space in front of the A. That way you can put a first name and space last name if you wanted to. Down below where it says next page and previous page, when you press that, it's going to give you capital letters. It's going to give you dashes and dots. So it gives you all sorts of ways to customize that label. Once you feel like you have the label in correctly, you're going to go ahead and hit edit number. Once you hit edit number, it's going to bring you up to a number. And you can go ahead and just use the keypad now. And remember that on this, you want to go ahead and put the 8 or 9 for outgoing, and then the area code and phone number. Okay, and once you have that information in, you'll hit OK, and then save again. You'll notice down at the bottom right here, it has pauses and flash. You won't really use the flash, but you may use the pause. The pause can be used for like if you're calling into a conference bridge that's the same number every time. You could set up a button on your phone, put in the phone number to the conference unit that you're calling, and then put in maybe 2 or 3 pauses so it has time to connect, and then put in the code with a pound in it. And that way you can go ahead and just one button hit and be joining a conference that you join weekly or daily. So that's kind of how that works. Play with that a little bit. There's also instructions that will be handed out to you so you can do step by step, but I wanted to show you what that looked like. Let's really quickly talk about the voicemail. Again, getting into the voicemail, you're going to use this little envelope key. It'll blink when you have messages along with that message indication light up top. Here's a little schematic that we'll be handing out to you. Just the basic flow of how the voicemail works. There's a lot, you have that voicemail key to go to. There is a pilot number, 2500, that you guys have used in the past to get to voicemail. You'll notice the initial passcode we talked about is 1111. Once you go in the first time and you put in the 1111, it's going to know it's the first time you've been in. It's going to take you through a tutorial, and it's going to have you set up your name, put in a greeting, and pick a new passcode. So be prepared with the passcode and know what you want your greeting to say when you start the process. In the little boxed area, it's all the ways you can access And then the little flow sheet that you see are the things you can do within the voicemail. So there's really just three things. You can play a message, you can make or create a message, or you can go into your user options and change things like your greeting and your name and your passcode. You can re-listen to the tutorial again, or you can go ahead and do a distribution list. Most people just use emails nowadays, but you do have the ability to do 9 different distribution lists, which means that you can send one message out and it'll go to, a bunch of people, and you can set up 9 of those types of setups. So if you have a sales group and you want to say, hey, let's all go to lunch, you can send one broadcast voicemail out. So starting at the top, you can see you have your play the message. Pretty standard stuff. It's different than it sounds now, but it's different enough to be good that you're not making mistakes trying to press the same keys. You'll notice right below the P to play are all cheats of the system, the biggest one being rewind 5 seconds. So if I hit star, you know how people leave you messages, call me back at 35544, and you're like, what? You can go ahead and hit the star key. It'll back you up in 5-second increments, and you can listen to that number again. There's a fast forward. I don't really use that, but maybe you will. And you can pause for 30-second increments, which is really nice when you press 1. So if I'm listening to a message and I press 1 because you've walked into my office and are asking me a question, I don't have to start over again. I can just press 1. It pauses it for 30 seconds. I can say, hey, I'm going to finish this up and get right back to you. Then it'll start playing the message again. So that's very helpful. After you listen to a message, there's all the options that you can do there. Play it again, answer, meaning it would call back the person, give it to another user, so that way I can give it to another internal user of the system. So if I think it's a voicemail for you, or it's in a general mailbox and I want to forward it to you, I can do that. I can keep the message. I can discard the message. Or I can begin making a new message. It'll take me straight to making a new message. So those are the options that you have when you're playing a message. When I'm listening or making a message for somebody, this works if I'm making it from here, or if I call your extension. I can, after I've left my message for you, I can review it. I can discard it and re-record it. I can append it, or I can message addressing options. So I can go ahead and pick things like, I can go ahead and make it confidential, which means that no one can forward it to anyone else. I can request a return receipt so I can know when you've listened to it. I can mark it as urgent, which means it puts it to the front of your list to listen to and tell you that you have an urgent message. Or I can mark things for future delivery. So I can send you a message and say send it at midnight so it looks like I worked really late. So those are the options that you have within the voicemail. And this flow sheet will help you the first couple days, but you'll notice it's pretty user-friendly, and there's no mystery. It tells you everything. So that's my presentation on this phone. If you have additional questions, go to your training department, and they can help you. And I thank you very much for your time.